So how are you guys doing? Good. Doing well? I see some activities, very slight activities on the iTunes U reader and the app, and lots of questions. Thanks for your feedback from last week, and also just your continued engagement. I appreciate. This is the third session, so we're halfway there, and I know the requirements is only for 3 out of 6, but I'm strongly encouraging you, if possible, to attend as many as you can, because if you are, just when you're here, there's a lot of value that you contribute to the group, as well as not just getting stuff for yourself. So today we're going to talk about opportunities for mobile learning, but I will start with another one of these. Viedmar's postcard. I know, drone is what came to mind too. So this was drawn in 1900, and the rural postman delivering mail on this little flying contraption. Email, text, yeah, that's pretty fascinating, interesting how, but the guy has to reach out to get it. So it's interesting how that looks. But there's a video. The audio is going to be challenging because my iPad is not connected to, but you don't need audio for this. So I don't know if you've seen this commercial. So even though the iPad can do a lot, there are certain limitations to it. So I'm going to play this video and then. So basically he's saying, don't use paper, use this. Why are you using Post-its? Use the app. Why are you reading on your book? Why are you printing? Why are you printing more? Why are you reading a normal book? And then he's like, Emma. So his wife basically responded like, you want to use your iPad for everything? Sometimes you do need it. It's a French toilet paper company commercial, so it's very, very funny. So something that Stephanie Fenwick brought to my attention, and some of you may have read this a couple of days ago from the Chronicle. There was an article about how academic research writing is so incomprehensible to the public, to a point where they're saying it's wasting everybody's time. People who are writing it, people who can't understand it, and so as a response to that, there were a handful of people who started tweeting their research using emojis, which is little icons, and one of the hashtag that started trending quite a bit on Twitter is this emoji research. So I don't know if you can read some of this. So Eva Moeller says, I researched new, this is a bunny, fast acting and a turtle slow acting. It's like a shot, so it's like a medicine for diabetes. They are tested on rats, pigs, dogs, and humans to make them, I don't know what that thing is, and check before we ship worldwide to help women be women. I don't know. But it's interesting. So it's an article in Chronicle.
That's comprehensive.
Or I study rat models of, and this is what, drinking, I think it's beer, there's a wine, there's a medicine, addiction. So I was just thinking, I don't know if you've activated your emoji keyboard on your iPad, but if you haven't, here are the instructions. So you can do it right now if you want. So you guys, have you guys activated that? I don't know why it's flickering so much in and out. So you just go to your settings, and then go to General, go to Keyboard, and then Keyboards, and then you can add the emoji to your. So this is what. Let me go to like.
If it already says emoji,
that means it's activated, and you can activate this on your phone too. So it's kind of interesting. Little. We were going to have a little icebreaker activity on Emoji, but I think we will keep moving forward. There's quite a bit. You can actually add additional emoji keyboards by additional apps that you do. So the way you can use it while you're typing is like this is your normal keyboard layout, and you see a little emoji key. If you press on that, it will bring up your emoji options. Do you see that? There's quite a bit, and then each page actually. Each tab has multiple pages of emoji stuff at the bottom. There's like probably 100 or more. So plenty of expressions for you to communicate with using the emoji. So that's emoji research that I think is interesting. Okay, so this is where we're at so far. So we've hopefully you've gained some confidence using your device. You have seen some examples of how mobile learning happens at other schools. And this, for this session and the readings that's related to this, there are some sort of concrete ways you can use mobile devices and apps for note-taking, for research, and for teaching. And I've added last 2 days, for those who haven't been on the reader, a couple more additional readings and resources that kind of give you more ideas of how to use this in in your daily routine as a faculty. And so we'll continue to kind of look at some of these specific opportunities today. I'm not going to spend too much time right now to review last week because it seemed like most of you got the exercises from last time. Sketch, Evernote, and Penultimate are fairly easy tools. It's just a matter of thinking about how you can use it in a different way. So as part of the book I'm reading called Make It Stick, it's about the learning science. It talks about there are different ways you can learn. There are example learners, and then there are model learners. And what they were referring to is example learners are learners who need a specific example to do something. For example, when we talked about emoji, as a teacher, I would give you, so you use emoji, and I gave you an example how it's used. And so learners who learn by example have a sort of limitation because once you go beyond the example, then they can't think and sort of, like if you were to ask students you just give them an example and then they go on their own. The example learners will always have to refer back to this and use that as their way to move forward. Whereas model learners, people who understand the model behind how it works, they can learn the model, and once they learn that model, they can go ahead and, in any context situation, they just replicate that model in that situation. And that's something that I'm hoping that we, as a group, can transition from. Right now, like up to this point in our institute, we've been learning, seeing a lot of examples, which is great. But what I'm hoping will make a transition starting this session is to look at models of learning. And I'll talk about a little bit about Bill Rankin's video. Anybody seen that? There was a 30-minute video. There was actually a very good piece. I'll review that one chunk of his talk that talks about this third age of information that we're in and how it's so critical. It's not about just learning how to access and getting to the information, but now, given how much information data we have in our society, how do we provide our students with models of learning and models of information that we can move forward with? So let me quickly go through these things just to highlight, and I hope you haven't had a chance to read the materials or watch the resources. I encourage you to spend some time doing it. I would say if you have very limited time and you can only do one thing, I would say watch the Bill Rankin video. That is actually very well done. I mean, it's a 30-minute video, and he goes through these really important changes that's happening in education sort of over time, and he kind of pinpoints where we're at. But I'll I'll quickly go through some of these resources. So there's a literature review that was done by a group of researchers from UK, and this was written in 2004. So I wanted to provide you some early, this is before the iPad, before the iPhone, before all the newer devices that we have. And it's pretty amazing how even back in the day, in 2004, they were already looking at how this, the mobile learning and mobile devices, what implications it will have on teaching and learning. So they kind of, I just picked out a couple of things from that reading. Like, they talk about how it necessitates new learning and teaching practices. And they go through sort of the different models of learning and implications for those. It talks about context-aware capabilities. When you start having devices that can tell you where you're at, what you're doing, and we're even at an age where we have wearables. Anybody have a little smart watch or wear like a Fitbit? I mean, it's starting to, I mean, it has so much information about our context that it's pretty ridiculous how much information. I think I just read the other day that on an average day there are 57 signals that we are connected to or are tracking us on a daily basis. It's stuff that you wear, stuff that's on your device, security cameras that you walk past, internet that when you log on. I mean, there are 57 signals on an average day that are tracking you, and that's a lot of information. And it's also learning moving beyond the outside classroom, and then also what does that mean when you have the ability to instantly capture, record, and publish content. So lots of implications. And this next report is by Malcolm Brown and Veronica Diaz from EDUCAUSE, and they did a session a couple of years ago, and they kind of pulled together sort of the best thinkers in the nation about mobile learning, and they found a couple of kind of interesting findings, like that iPads and tablets and mobile phones will not replace the laptop, but rather will complement it. So it's good to know that this is not ultimately the only device that we'll be using, but it is part of the computing blend. Things like, instead of banning mobile devices, they were talking about how do we channel its usage, because it's almost impossible. I mean, you can say don't use it, but that doesn't really, I mean, students usually will do it under the table. They will, I mean, they find ways around it. And then also the diversity of devices and how do you deal with that diversity if someone has a iPad and others have Android devices, and so, but this might not be an issue depending on how BAS moves forward. Some of the Wi-Fi, I think it's causing this. All right. And this is the Rankin, so he goes through sort of 3 ages, the hand, the book, and the data. And with each age, there's, so the problem with the age of the hand is this handwritten, everything was handwritten, and that was just an issue of access. He gave an example of the being a baker. How do you become a master baker? You have to like be an apprentice. You have to actually be there with that one person and live with them and learn how it's made before you can. And so that ability to become good at something was very limited in terms of how many people can be part of that. And then once the Gutenberg press came out and books started being distributed, knowledge became widely dispersed, libraries were erected. The problem then was, how do you find the information? And so, and then the third age is which is what we're in, is the age of data, where it's the abundance of data, and how do we now assess and evaluate and curate data and for our students. And so with each of these, and this is what he was talking about, the contextual information model learning, that's really where we're at in terms of our historic trajectory in terms of education. And that's very, that's, we're hoping that with some of this things that we're reading and we're doing in this institute, it's helping you, provide you that framework. How do you, instead of just helping students access and acquire knowledge, how do you help them curate evaluate and use that like models of data to do other things with it. So, so I have a little change in, so instead of doing all the items in the workbook, I just thought it would be good to spend maybe about 20 minutes or so in your small group working on this one activity. So in your small group, and I'll show you the list of the groups from last time, I want you to identify one pedagogical or administrative challenge or problem that you can think of, that you commonly face. And brainstorm a solution that involves the use of an app or maybe just the device itself, and provide a solution briefing on the session 3 worksheet that is in the shared folder that you guys uploaded your pictures from last time. So does that make sense? So here are the groups. So get in your groups. As a group, just identify a challenge, whether it's administrative or a teaching challenge that you have, and brainstorm. So this is what I'm asking you to think of a solution, a use case, a real use case for how you can take something you're currently facing and how can you use that technology to help address that challenge. Does that make sense? All right. So I'll give you guys about 15, 20 minutes.